So, yes, I grew up in Brooklyn in the housing projects, and music was it was kind of a big deal in the housing projects. Every building almost had their own band, and um, it made for a really good environment for learning about music and working on music. The thing I remember the most, of course, is I had been taking trumpet lessons for a while. I took piano lessons for a while. I took saxophone lessons for a while. But I seemed to have an affinity for the bass. The reason I actually started playing bass was I was in a band as a trumpet player and as the lead singer. And um, there were a lot of tunes where I couldn't sing or I had to like take the horn away from my mouth. I wouldn't play all the parts because playing trumpet and singing at the same time doesn't work. Um, and in my band, as in a lot of bands back then, we didn't have a bass player. The keyboard player played the bass on a separate little bass keyboard, or sometimes in the left hand on his farfisa. So we didn't have a bass player, and the keyboard player of the band, who's still a dear friend of mine, um, said to me, I got this bass that our friend Buzzy, left at the house. Um, why don't I teach you, like we're going to do Knock on Wood, which is a great old R&B song. He said, it's really easy to play. Everybody knows it's open. So you really only had to know two things. And this was actually harder than this part, to coordinate it. But I learned that song, and then I think I learned Mustang Sally. And suddenly, those two songs, we had a bass player. I kind of had an affinity for it, and I liked it. So I played it on a few more songs here and there, and kind of realized that bass, which I didn't own, was kind of felt weird. It was a big hollow body, kind of like a Gibson, you know, like an E335 or something, but as a bass. So it wasn't very comfortable to play, and it really had a very strange sound. And so I decided, yeah, I need to buy a bass. So I bought a Kent bass. That cost me a whole $5 for my babysitting money. Um, and I started playing that. I didn't know much about the instrument at that point, and the Kent bass had action that was about that high. I mean, it was like halfway to a upright bass action. And so I thought that this was kind of normal, because the first one I played, the one that my friend had in his basement, was warped beyond comprehension. And I have it again, and it's still warped exactly like that. Um, and then this one was about this. So I figured, oh, it's a bass. That's what they are. They have, you know, high action because it's a bass. So I practiced and I learned how to play all these songs and stuff like that. And then one day I stopped at another guy's house in another band, and he had just gotten his first bass, and it was brand new. I said, "Oh, it's great," and I picked it up and I played it. And what? Why are the strings so close to the neck? What do you mean? Why are the strings so close to the neck? No, I mean, why are they so close? All my basses are up here. He goes, no, that's wrong. That means they're warped or they're not set up. That's the way they're supposed to be. And even though I didn't have chops, I could play it really easy and really fast compared to the Kent that I had at home. So I started borrowing basses, and I went and bought new strings, which cost actually, I think, $6, which stunned me that they cost more than the actual instrument that I bought. Um, and I started getting into it a little bit more. And my dad noticed that I really dug it, and he saw all the pictures above my bed of all the different instruments, all the different companies, all the different things. And it's a very long story, but to make this extremely long story a little shorter, my dad takes me for a walk one day outside of the community, about 2 blocks north of the housing project, and he says, come on, we'll stop by the music store on the way out. So we stop by the music store, and we walk in, and the guy says hello to my dad. I was kind of like, why would he say hello to my dad? How does he even know my dad? It's me and my friends who come in after school every day. My dad doesn't go to music stores. And my dad said hi to the guy, and the guy said, just one moment. And he comes back out, and he wheels out an amp on a dolly with a cover, very important back then when I grew up, and a brand new bass in a hard shell case. And my dad had purchased it for me. as he had purchased my trumpet for me, and as he had brought an upright piano into the house for me and my sister to practice on. So I immediately went into the ozone, like just, I can't believe I own an actual new instrument, something that, wow, this is like that other guy's, like, wow, the strings are so close to the neck and it's so clean and nice. And so we got it out of the store, and I'm still stunned, and I thanked my dad, who never really, he didn't tell me where he got the money from, but I found out later after he argued with my mom that he obviously took the little bit of spare money they had to cover if there was something wrong with the rent, and he bought this gear for me. I don't think my mom was real thrilled about it. Now she's real thrilled about it. Then she wasn't so thrilled about it. Now we have to walk back, and of course, wheeling an amp on a dolly put me on a whole new level, because basically we would wheel everything to our rehearsals in shopping carts because nobody had money to buy a dolly. So now I had a dolly, I had the amp, and as we walked from north to south through the housing projects, every building we passed, like the Pied Piper, we were picking up kids from all the buildings. Hey, what'd you get? What's your amp? And, oh, that's great. Hey, you want to be in a band? And, we're playing at the Battle of Bands next week. Are you guys playing? By the time I got home, I was probably in 3 new bands. Everybody knew I had gear, and my entire band was like waiting for me. By the time I got there, everybody knew. And that was pretty much for a young teenager, I mean, this is pretty heavy stuff. So that was kind of the inception of me, like, really being interested in the bass, although I stuck with the trumpet for close to 14 years, right up through college. But in my last year of high school, I really started to play bass, and I just knew how to play. I could read music because I took piano lessons. I could read music because I played trumpet, and I was able to, translate it pretty quickly to the bass. And, I see a C, and okay, well, that's a C, that's a G, that's an F. I knew what the open strings were. And again, like anything else, if you spend enough hours in your room pounding on something like this, you too can gain knowledge, and you get good pretty quick. So I was thrilled to get the opportunity to do that, and I thanked my dad, a million times over. And his whole thing was, just to not make him feel like he wasted his money, just as long as you're practicing. And then we kind of got into a little thing when I got into college, because I got into college as a trumpet player. I didn't want to play trumpet anymore. I really wanted to study bass. So every day in college, when you were supposed to go to the practice room to practice your major instrument, I would practice bass. Don't tell my mother. I just loved playing it so much. It just, I don't know. As they say, it became part of me. And the trumpet I really dug, and it felt very clinical. Well, it did to me, because I wasn't Randy Brecker. I was just a trumpet player. But the bass gave me a very special feeling. I like being the bottom of the band. I like working with the drummer. I liked figuring out how to marry up with him and make a song sound like the record that we were imitating. Because, of course, at that point in your career, you're playing cover tunes, and you're copying your favorite artists and playing their bass lines and stuff. You don't know half of the bass players back when I was a kid. The credits weren't everywhere. And when you were imitating a Motown song, I didn't know who James Jamerson was yet. I didn't know who Chuck Rainey was yet. I just wanted to play that bass line. When the Rascals had a song out, and, of course, if you realize and you think about it, they didn't have a bass player. It was a session guy. And sometimes Chuck Rainey was like major guys, and they played incredible bass lines. So you would learn it, but you didn't necessarily know who these guys were. But that became the formative years of being in Brooklyn, playing in the Battle of the Bands, doing every wedding and Sweet 16 that you could possibly play on while you're going to school. And eventually, like I said, if you spend enough hours in a little room with an instrument, you could learn some stuff.